And all right, hey young voters. Today, me and Harry are going to be doing a debate. We have pretty good content in store. We're pretty excited. So this will last about 45 minutes. We're just about to do the opening statements. So yeah, Alex, whenever you're ready.
All right, good evening. As you can see today, we are gathered to discuss the question, is capitalism good? Today we will start again with our opening statements. I will first give it over to Harry to introduce himself and state his position on the argument.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Harry Marks. So the debate rules said to state my political compass location. If you go all the way right and all the way down, then up one and left one, I'm right there. So some people say I'm radical. I'd say I'm pretty moderate. Anyhow, there may be some agreement tonight between Nico and I. It all depends on his definition of capitalism and mine. If we're talking the US capitalism right now, what we're sitting in, I would say I do not like it. I reject it. I think it is terrible. We have the government printing money. We have 26 trillion in debt. We have central planning, central bank, company bailouts. You get the point. I prefer free market. I don't even like the word capitalism. I want free market, no income tax, no tariffs, no business regulation by the government whatsoever. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Harry. I'll pass it over to Nico. You can introduce yourself and basically state your position as well.
All right, thank you. My name is Nico, and I will be arguing in the anti-capitalist perspective. And you know, me and Harry, we got that libertarian unity. So I would agree with him that we may agree on some stuff, but we also may disagree on some stuff a lot. I'm libertarian left. Some people again will also call me radical. I think I am slightly more radical than most people should be, but I think we definitely need to push this country a lot more left. So that's why I'm so far. I'm basically touching the wall and then pretty far down on the bottom side. So yeah, like I said, I will be arguing the anti-capitalist perspective. I think free market capitalism is probably the worst type of capitalism. I will be arguing for a certain capitalism that is restricted and governed by a set of rules, somewhat more like Nordic capitalism, somewhere around that model.
Yeah, that will cover it for introductions. We'll now begin the more important and significant portion of today's Zoom, which will be covering our arguments. So if either of you want to unmute yourself and start off by presenting your argument or asking the other opponent a question.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and lay down my thesis, Harry, if you don't mind. So basically, my central thesis is that capitalism is inherently oppressive and exploits workers and creates wealth inequality. And if continued, it will lead to late-stage capitalism, late-stage dystopian capitalism, capitalist hell, in which corporations will dominate our lives and which will be more oppressive than any government, the most oppressive governments can ever imagine. Capitalism is an unsustainable economic model that in my opinion, will create the worst version of society given time, and is inherently immoral. And all capitalism leads to crony capitalism. And also, I just want to, before we start exactly, I'll be using a lot of anti-capitalist terms like proletariat and the working class and bourgeois and stuff like that. So maybe just do a couple of Google searches if you're not exactly sure what I'm meaning by that.
But Nico, understand that this debate is for the open public, so you may want to refer to simpler terms that are more easy to understand. Harry, you can go ahead.
Okay, so with your in the introduction, you said you'd prefer something more like Nordic capitalism. Does Sweden work for you?
Um, I have looked into Sweden the least of a Nordic model, but go ahead and like say what you're trying to get at, man.
Well, I'm just pointing out that if you in Sweden make 32,000 pounds a year,
Mhm.
that's about 42,800, $580. You will be taxed in 2020 61.8% income tax. Um, that means you walk home with 17K.
By which year you said?
2020.
Okay. So yeah, I would see. I just did some googling and I found that number to be pretty spot on. The thing is, in these Nordic countries, they have tremendous benefits and stuff like that. And I think this will be something you agree with me on. In the U.S., a lot of people don't like paying taxes because they don't go towards really great things. Like we spend the most in the world by like a factor of like what 20 on our military. And I've seen you agreeing with this. People don't want to pay millions of dollars to buy drones so we can bomb brown kids in the Middle East. No one really wants to pay their taxes towards that. In these countries like Sweden, they have stuff like they have free education, they have great unemployment systems, free healthcare, stuff like that. So really, when it comes down to it, they're a lot happier paying their taxes because they know it's going towards something that's good and that will help them than we are here. So I would say that they are happy with how much they pay in tax. And Sweden, I think, is one of the higher tax in the Nordic model. I think.
Okay.
All right. So I guess I will. So my first thesis, I guess. So this is a good thought exercise to usually run through. And if you don't mind me doing this, so when a business starts in a capitalist system, say someone wants to bake bread, right? So they have this idea, they have this formula for baking bread, and they decide, hey, we're going to start making bread. They make a business, they get the capital for it, they get a loan or whatever, and they make the business. And they make the best bread. Everybody likes their bread, so they start making a lot of profits. They start hiring a couple workers, and the business starts growing eventually. Now Bob, the guy who made this bread company. He likes money. Everybody likes money. And he knows that as soon as his company goes public, he's going to start having to make more and more money every year um, at a increasingly faster pace to appease his shareholders. So once Bob gets bread company gets a little bigger, and they open a couple stores in the area and stuff like that. Now they're raking in a lot of dough, pun intended, and and now Bob opens his company to the stock market, and now he has to make more and more profit every year. And what's the one of the largest costs in the capitalist system, and the easiest thing to cut? That would be workers' wages. And now he cuts his workers' wages, but what are the workers going to do? They're all bakers. All they know is how to bake. And now Bob owns all the baker stores in the area, so they have to keep working for him, and they can't complain because Bob's fires anybody who tries to form a union. And now this company starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon they own all the bread stores in the nation. And now every bread store is produced. Bob is the owner of all bread stores. And this is something that has happened in real life. Six major companies own pretty much everything that you could ever find in a grocery store. They own all the brands. And my point is that all capitalism kind of leads to this cycle of domination of corporations and pushing down of workers' rights. So Harry, how would you kind of respond to that? Because I know you probably have something.
Well, I have a few questions. First, what I'm getting from this is you want to hire, I just read that chat. You want higher minimum wage?
I think that in a capitalist system, you got the managers, you got the workers. The managers, their prime incentive is to make the workers work as much as possible and get the wages as least as possible. And it's not because these people are bad people. It's not because they hate their workers, but that's just how it is in a capitalist system. If you're not making enough profit so that you're creating enough capital to reinvest in your own business, then other businesses are they're gonna do it. They're gonna be more successful. They're gonna get larger and they're gonna outcompete you. So there is always a push from and for the workers, obviously they want the least amount of hours possible and the highest wages because you want whatever's best for you. So in this capitalist system where the managers were pushed down on workers' rights and because of how wealth floats to the top, the proletariat will always, the bourgeois class will always have more influence, and that's why workers' wages are going to be pushed down. So yeah, workers' wages is just one example.
So I don't know if you've seen this from Ted Cruz, but he says if you take, let's say, a McDonald's, they have, to make it simple, $30 an hour to spend on their workers. Minimum wage, again, to make it simple, we'll say $10. They can then hire 3 workers because they have 30 to spend, $10 an hour. Let's say Bernie becomes president and makes it 15. McDonald's still only has $30 an hour to spend on wages. Now they're only forced to have 2 workers, giving 2 I don't know how to respond to that, but okay.
Yeah, moving on to that. Moving on from that.
Like I was saying, now McDonald's only has enough money per hour to spend on 2 workers. You now have 2/3 of the people making money, the other person unemployed. Now what, we're just going to tax the 2 making money, take their $5 and give it to the guy who doesn't work? My problem with socialism is that you're giving, it rewards the lazy people while free market rewards work ethic.
All right. So just before we continue, I don't consider myself to be, a socialist, and it's not the topic of the topic of the argument that I want to make in this situation. And I think you agree. We should just probably focus on capitalism. I think personally, I think that capitalism is probably a little bit better than most of the other economic systems, and well, not better, but basically, it's in our interest to you know continue capitalism for a little bit, but we should do some stuff to it. But yeah, so basically, nowhere in the United States.
I would hate to interrupt you, but it seems like you've been speaking a lot over the last 10 minutes. I kind of like to hear Harry make some points for why capitalism is good, or why he believes capitalism is better than other systems.
Can I just respond to this, and then he can take the floor?
Make it short.
All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So nowhere, there's a study that's been done, and nowhere in the United States can a worker working on minimum wage afford the rent for a 2-bedroom apartment. This is not even talking about expenses for food and other stuff like that. So minimum wage is not enough right now. If minimum wage had increased with productivity over the decades, it would be I think it was $22.50 an hour or $27.50 an hour. Anyways, it'd be way higher than it is right now. And these companies, they can afford, they're making massive profits for their CEOs and stuff like that. So they can afford to keep the third worker as well if they wanted, if they can just cut profits. And in McDonald's in Norway, I believe is like $20 an hour for McDonald's. And they could afford it if they want it. and just lowering unemployment for lowering for the sake of it is not the best idea, because if you're having people working in terrible working conditions, but at least they have the job, that's probably not the best situation.
Hang on, I lost what I was going to say. Right. You brought up a point about that statistic. I've seen it going around on Instagram, whatever, that a person on minimum wage can't afford 2-bedroom apartment, whatever. The point of minimum wage is not to make a living. You're not going to, build your house, provide for your family working at, as a greeter at Walmart. Point of a minimum wage is to get a job, learn work skills, pay for college, trade school degree, whatever, and to progress, which is another reason why I say free market or capitalism rewards work ethic. If you work harder, you get that minimum wage job, you invest it, you go to school, get a better job, you have work ethic, and you will make more money. Giving you a way to pay for a 2-bedroom apartment. I don't believe this chat is out of control. I don't believe that. Well, you get my point. I think you can argue it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that people working at McDonald's are not any less of a person and don't really deserve less of a life because they're working. It's really up to anybody what your station in life is. But also a point that I would bring up: if you can't afford a place to live, how are you supposed to save up enough money to go to college to advance your station? Social mobility in the United States is one of the lowest in the developed world. So just saying that, pull yourself up by the bootstraps harder, pull yourself up by the bootstraps harder is probably not the best solution. If you can barely afford rent and food, people aren't saving. Over 60% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 expense. How are they going to pay for a trade school, college, stuff like that? Or even get the capital to start their own business.
Okay, typically, good grief, hang on. Is there a way we can mute this chat or something?
So for now, just ignore it. I'll let you know if there's actually anything important in the chat.
Okay, thank you. What were we talking about?
We were saying, you're not able to accumulate enough capital under this current system to reinvest in yourself.
Okay, so you brought up a point of these people have no place to live. Anyhow, the people who work at McDonald's, Giant, grocery stores, minimum wage places are typically teenagers, again, learning work skills, saving for college because they can live at home. Geez.
I can take away the chat, right? We'll disable it. It's supposed to be used for a purpose.
Just try
Can we
to filter
take the chat seriously, please? We're legitimately distracting the debate right now, and I think we need to take it seriously.
Yes, mind you.
The main point of the chat is for questions and everything, so please stop using it irresponsibly or just leave.
I'll make a compromise with you guys after the debate's done. I mean, Harry, you don't have to stay for this, but after the debate's done, we'll discuss this. I'll do a deep dive into Ted Cruz's porn addiction.
Understood, but again, let's just get back to the debate.
I'll join. Let's just save it for later, okay?
I can disable the chat. I'll do so if I see another comment. Understood? All right, let's get back to the debate, please.
Also, we should use the chat for questions about the actual debate, okay?
Okay. I actually have one question for the judge. How much
Okay.
time is left in open debate?
We have about 14 minutes left.
Okay, works for
We're
me.
about halfway through.
But my point was that minimum wage is designed for teenagers living at home, you know. Finally, a good question. Anyhow, living at home so they can save, go to college, you know, the whole common middle class American lifestyle for growing up into getting a well-paying job.
Yeah, I would agree if a significant enough chunk of this was teenagers, but even what was the data point you said? What percentage
Of what?
of people under the age of 18 working minimum wage jobs?
I didn't have one.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to find. All right. Anyways, even if it's like 40% or something, you still have like that 60% of people who aren't earning enough money to even go by. And there's also like a large percentage of gig economy workers who are not represented because they're technically independent contractors, and they can be paid even less. And as we've seen, a large part of America's economy is a gig economy. And that's why lockdown has had such a devastating effect on everybody because a lot of this stuff is the service industry and gig economy. And for people who don't know, that's like stuff like Uber and Uber Eats and other stuff called Uber.
Yeah, I see your point. You've been talking a lot about corporations, big corporations. You know, the guy owns all the bread stores. What do you think your ideal economic system, how would that work for small businesses? The local, one owner gas stations maybe hires a kid, you know?
Sure thing. So, are you saying like the how would it affect profits if small businesses were forced to hire people at larger and larger wages?
Right. Well, I was just talking about this to somebody the other day. Um, I'm an outdoor guy, I hunt a lot. Anyhow, if you look at Bass Pro Shops, they own Cabela's, they own pretty much like 90% of outdoor stores around here. That's an estimation, that's not a fact. Um, anyhow, but then you look, I don't know if anyone's heard of Gordon's. It's in, I guess, Upper Euclid Township, right in that town center. Anyhow, their prices, you go in there, are typically twice as much as Bass Pro Shops because they don't buy in bulk like Bass Pro Shops does. Bass Pro Shops can buy 40,000 fishing poles, get them really cheap. Then Gordon's will get, 10 fishing poles, a lot more. And they don't get a lot of customers. They're not making as much money. So they're forced to sell at higher prices.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know if we're agreeing on this or not, but in my opinion, all types of capitalism lead to monopoly. Like I said in the bread example, there's always going to be one person that's the better competitor, and they rise to the top. And once they get to the top, they can do whatever they want. I mean, if Bass Pro started making like fishing lines like incredibly expensive, they've bought out and taken over like most of the stores in your area. And if they're able to get 100% of the stores in their area owned by them, they can make the prices whatever they want, and that's essentially a monopoly. And I feel like monopolies are an inherent problem to capitalism, and we need to have stuff like antitrust laws. And you're a supporter of free market capitalism. As of my understanding, free market capitalism doesn't like government intervention like that. So, how would you say your free market capital system prevents stuff like Bass Pro taking over in these places? versus more government intervention?
Well, I'd say usually it wouldn't happen. I mean, name one monopoly that owns everything where,
Yeah, everything you could see in a grocery store is owned by 6 companies. Everything.
yeah, 6. You can
Yeah,
also go to a local farmer's market.
Among
Grow your
the
food.
millions of businesses, you just said yourself, Bass Pro is taking over 90% of the stores. Yeah, it's technically not legally defined as a monopoly, but for all intents and purposes, these 6 guys holding all of the market share is ridiculous. It doesn't allow for any sort of competition where the little guys are absolutely annihilated by the bigger guys. Like for example, Amazon, they're moving into I think they're making their prices at Whole Foods cheaper to try and strangle out the rest of the grocery stores. They're making their prices cheaper, and then once all the other grocery stores go out of business because they can't lower prices to the same amount Amazon can, because Amazon has tons of capital that they can afford to lose short term, so that long term they can take over and buy out these stores and then raise prices back up. Under free market capitalism, there's no protection for the little guy.
So you said 6 people or 6
companies.
6 companies own everything you see at a grocery store.
And I can source that for you if you want.
Can I get it?
Yeah. All right, let's see. Nestle, P&G, Coca-Cola, Unilever, PepsiCo, Kellogg's, Mars, General Mills, Mondelez, Johnson & Johnson, Kraft Heinz. They own ridiculous. They're one of the top companies. They own a ridiculous amount of stuff.
What's the source though?
Wikibuy blog is the one I have specifically. I can put it in the chat if you want. But this is a pretty well-known fact. Oh, the chat got disabled. Anyways, we've seen,
Can you please turn the chat back on?
we've seen all
Be a good boy. I hate that guy.
So, but what does free market capitalism do to stop this, Harry?
Competition, purely.
Mhm.
Usually, you don't have one grocery store starting out at the top of all the rest. Way back in the beginning, you've just a bunch of local stores, okay, and they compete with each other. I sell apples for 90 cents. You look at it like gas stations. They're everywhere. I look at Sunoco and it says 249. I see Exxon, it says 246. I'm going to Exxon. Therefore,
Exactly.
get more business. If Exxon raises their prices because they're getting more business, I'll just go to Sunoco because the price is lower.
Mm-hmm. But continue that model. At the start of capitalism, I think the start of capitalism was pretty good, and in general, capitalism is pretty good at meeting the needs of the market. But as capitalism progresses, and over 50, 100 years, and obviously we're definitely at that stage now, businesses will get so big and so large that they can outcompete any business they wanted. Say I want to open a online platform store or whatever.
Thank you for unmuting the chat.
Different questions, please.
What was I saying? Yeah, basically what I'm saying is larger companies have the power to outcompete smaller companies by temporarily lowering their prices until the smaller companies go out of business, right? So they are the best company by competition.
Okay, I want to take a look at the car manufacturing company because I know this really well, or at least I think I do. Anyhow, if you look at the American companies, you got Mopar, which is Chrysler, Dodge. Then you have Chevy and Ford.
Mhm.
I mean, name one other American car company. There are none. Anyhow, so you've got 3 controlling all the car companies in America. I mean, yes, you buy Toyota, whatever. All three of those have been bailed out by the government. They have been bailed out by the government. They have been in trouble. Okay, technically Ford has not been, but they took money in some like abstract way. Anyhow, they have all taken money from the government to help the economy. This is not the free market I want, and you let that company fail, another can rise up. You know, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would. This is a point where we agree on. I think it's the libertarian side. You don't approve of the CARES Act, right?
Sorry?
The CARES Act that was recently passed. It was the huge multi-billion-dollar corporate bailout.
No, of course I don't.
Coronavirus. Yeah. So there were basically absolutely no provisions in that. It was basically just it was passed and it let Trump's multi-million-dollar CEO guy give out the funds as he wanted, and surprise, surprise, they ended up being given to all his best donors. In my opinion, capitalism always creates this system where companies are very much financially incentivized to infiltrate the government and do lobbying and stuff like that, because it's way cheaper for them to just get new laws passed than to actually compete with other smaller, usually possibly better businesses. So they'll just infiltrate the government via donations and lobbying and stuff. And then now these lawmakers will pass a bunch of laws giving tons of money to corporations. And then when the working man wants help, like a stimulus check, Mitch McConnell closes Congress until December.
You brought up an wonderful. You brought up something I'd like to discuss, and that was stimulus checks.
Yeah.
Would that? I mean, obviously, there's tons of people unemployed because, I mean, I have COVID right now, and so people are staying home. Whatever. Do you think stimulus checks are a good thing, or? I mean, it's kind of like a short-term, I'll say socialism. I know this is about capitalism, but it's a short-term, what I'll call anti-capitalism kind of thing.
Yeah, so you're saying yeah, I would definitely support stimulus checks. They've been demonstrably shown to be super helpful to the economy. I mean, that's like how we got out of the Great Depression, was getting people jobs, getting people money, getting people grants, stuff like that. When you give a poor person, very struggling, you give them $1,200, they will instantly reinvest that straight back into the economy. They'll go to Walmart, they'll buy themselves some food, some clothing, whatever, like stuff. It goes straight back into the economy. And unfortunately, it goes straight up to corporations in the 1%, but that's kind of sort of related, but not too related. And that's how you re-stimulate the economy, by giving people this money. It goes straight to them. They spend it straight away, and all of a sudden, the industry is booming again. If you give it to the corporations, they're going to take that money and they're going to put it straight back into stock buybacks, which is exactly what they did. We gave it to the airline industries, and they said, "All right, great. We're not going to fire anybody till September." And then in September rolled around, they fired everybody, and now they're taking money and putting it into stock buybacks. That's exactly what they did after the 2008 crash. They got the money, they ran, they did the stock buybacks. They fire employees, they'll give their CEOs ginormous severance packages. I have a thing of Disney doing that. If I can pull it up while you respond.
I would like to say that we have about 2 minutes remaining for both of you guys, and then we'll move into closing statements.
Okay. Yeah, I never believed in stimulus checks. Great. In the chat again. Anyhow, I think it would be way better for the economy just to open up everything. I mean, 99.8% survival rate. I mean, 1 out of 6 men get prostate cancer. We have a 99.8% chance of surviving this virus, and we're going to shut everything down and hand out money.
So if airlines had 99.9% successful flights, there would not be an airline industry. No one would fly airlines. There'd be thousands of deaths per year. if we reopen the economy like this, instead of just doing a full shutdown for a couple of weeks and reopen the economy once the virus is gone, if we reopen the economy like this, there'll be millions getting infected. The rates will be like through the roof. It'll be like nothing compared to what it is now. Millions of people get infected. Maybe 100,000 people will die, possibly up to a million. So, you know, we gotta give people the money so that they can spend to keep the economy going for a little bit. But we shouldn't be doing things like, and I think I'll agree with this, pumping trillions of dollars a day into the stock market to keep it afloat, to be giving certain political people an edge in the upcoming, or the election that already happened. If we just close the whole economy for a little bit and let the coronavirus pass, it would be much better for the economy than to keep it closed for months on end, like we did now. And we would also save trillions, I mean, not trillions, millions, hundreds of thousands to millions of lives, potentially.
You brought up something I'd want to touch on. Where do you get the money for stimulus checks? It's just taken from the people it's given to. Now, before you respond, are we going to print it? Because the federal government can print money. Then you just decrease the value of the dollar. If we can just print money, it's what's money, you know?
Sorry, I'm just yeah, so inflation long term is obviously a big issue. We could print the money, but we have the money right now. I mean, we could cut the military budget by 20% and we have all the money we want. We could tax the rich a little bit more, not do the tax cuts that we're doing right now. We just passed like huge tax cuts to the rich. We could have just not bailed out the failing and irresponsible corporations. We could have said the same thing that we said to the American people. Oh well, you should have saved up for this. This is your fault. That's what we should have told the corporations and given the American people a bailout, because we know that they're unable to even save up at all. The money, we spent copious amounts. We increased the national debt by like ridiculous amounts over this pandemic. If we just spent like 10% of that on the working class, we would have done a lot more for the economy than we did now, which is basically just giving the money straight back to the 1% who are just going to hoard it and not spend it.
So stimulus checks for what, $1,200 for a single person? I think so, somewhere around there. If you probably know how high the military budget is. I know it's a ridiculous amount. If we just cut the taxes on that, got rid of income tax, gave it back to the people, $1,200 is like 1/1000th of what they would get back over time.
But people need the money now, don't they? I mean, we're in a recession now. It's not going to be like, oh, here's the recession for 20 years, whatever. We don't want to prevent the recession over the next 20 years, like slightly dampen the effects. We want to stop it right now, right in its tracks, before it is even able to take hold.
Right, but my point is, it's partially the tax's fault for this.
Right, but if the taxes, it's spread out over the long term. People can afford to pay $5 extra in taxes every year for the next 20 years, but they can't afford to be unemployed for the next 6 months and be living off of like $200 a month plus the one-time $1,200 stimulus bill that some people got but not everybody got.
Okay, I'll say any arguments for both of you, but we have one question in the chat. The person asks if Harry believes that a masks are infringement on our rights.
I do. In fact, I really don't wear them that much unless I'm going to get kicked out of a store or something. I believe in this thing. If you want to go out, risk it, whatever, You should be able to. You want to go to work? Go for it. You scared? Stay home. Problem solved. And if you die, you die. Get over it.
Uh,
Does that answer the question? I'm guessing yes.
Yes. All right. Both of you, you may make your closing arguments. Nico, you can start this time because Harry started in the introduction.
oh, well, Alex, do you want to wait? Do you want to wait a little bit more, like give people like this is the question time, so
Sure.
because we have time. We're a little early on this, right?
No, we're actually a little over.
A little over the question time. Okay.
If anyone has any questions, just put it in the chat. Please, serious questions. It's going to be used for most of this time period.
Let's see if there's some before, right? Oh, there's a question from Instagram, Alex. What was it again?
Sorry, I don't have that on file right now.
Okay, I believe it was like, someone asked if I was a communist. No, I'm not a communist at all. I would be very hesitant to call myself even a socialist. I would probably say democratic socialist, which is still like very slightly to the left of capitalism. I'm more of an anti-capitalist. My main philosophy is that capitalism is already in place, and to develop something like socialism is going to take a lot of time and a lot of hardship. So we should sort of defang capitalism as much as possible by providing safety nets like they do in the Nordic countries and stuff like that, and just go as far as possible to defanging the worst aspects of capitalism, so that someone can come along one day and think of something better than either capitalism or socialism, instead of having to work a constant 9-to-5 job, so that they're able to pay off the debts that they're been able trying to pay off from college, so that they may one day retire for 5 years before they die.
Okay, and we have one more question. Is trickle-down economics a viable? Sorry, is it a viable strategy? I guess we can give that to Harry.
I will be honest, I am not read up. Oh, Ryan wants both takes.
All right, sure, we'll do both. Harry, then Nico.
Trickle down economics have been proven to not work at all. They're just another ploy by the rich to try and get people to believe that giving 80% of their labor to some CEO that they'll never meet is actually more beneficial than taking the profits home themselves.
So what are you gonna do? Tax the rich more?
Yeah, I mean they're taxed super low right now. Amazon paid like $0 in federal income tax last year. We are not taxing them at all, like to a fair rate. Not even as much as the rest of the population. I mean, in the 60s we had like something like a 70% tax rate. Let me find it. It was like way higher than it is right now for the rich. And in the 60s was the height of the Red Scare. So if we were able to do that where everybody was calling everything under the sun communism, why can't we do that now?
So earlier you talked about how people making a minimum wage can't afford 2-bedroom apartment. If you raise the taxes on the rich, your apartment prices will go up. So what are you going to raise the minimum wage to?
You're saying like, okay, so this is kind of a problem with capitalism, like where people are just never satisfied with the amount of money that they're making. They always have to make more, and these landlords will see, oh yeah, I can make more money, let me make more money off these workers. So we could set caps on how much things should cost. We could provide government housing. There's tons of things we can do in terms of housing.
Thank you. Again, let's move to our closing because we're a little bit over time right now. So again, we can start with Harry. there's closing arguments, and basically summing up what he believes the takeaway from this should be, and then we'll go to Nico to finish it up.
I'm starting the closing arguments.
Yes, that's correct.
Deny open.
All right, my apologies. I guess I'll go with Nico then.
All right, so like I said, I'll probably just restate my thesis. Capitalism leads to massive wealth inequality, and wealth inequality is terrible for the economy. Capitalism has been shown to constantly create downturns in the economy. There's a whole thing called, the business cycle, where there must be recessions. There must be government to come along and bail out these businesses that can't properly function. Every 60 something years, the years vary. It's terrible for workers' rights, because the managers in a more powerful class will always be incentivized to make life as miserable as possible for the workers, and therefore I think it's a immoral system. It relies on exploitation and just making people's lives as bad as possible. It relies on a constant amount of unemployment. There always has to be people who are starving to death in capitalism, despite the fact that we produce enough food to feed 10 billion people in the entire world. We're just throwing tremendous amounts of it away. All capitalism leads to the term of crony capitalism, and wealth inequality is terrible right now. It's just as bad as it was before the Great Depression and before the French Revolution. So it's really something that should be addressed. And capitalism does not create a good enough society for workers, and we need to transform this society so that the lives of the common people are better, and not the lives of the rich a million times better than ours, but them 100 times, and us are still pretty good.
Okay. I'll say in my closing argument, point, whatever. I think if you let the market decide, we're all better off. It'll guide itself. Everything will be worked out through competitiveness, which makes better products and even better wages. I will say, to close, free market rewards work ethic, while a command economy tends to reward the lazy. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, both pundits. Thank you for attending today, everyone. Thank you for coming today, again, pundits. And that will conclude our debate for Is Capitalism Good? Thank you.
Oh!
Great job, good job arguing.
All right, you might want to end the recording now.
Oh yeah, let me end the recording here. People watching from home, on the survey, you're going to be asked to list a certain term to verify that you actually watched the recording. This term will be Christmas tree. I repeat again, Christmas tree. So survey.